first reading is from James chapter 1 and verses 1 to 15. It's on page 1213 of the Pew Bibles. James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes scattered among the nations, greetings. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do. Believers in humble circumstances ought to take pride in their high position, but the rich should take pride in their humiliation, since they will pass away like a wild flower. For the sun rises with scorching heat and withers the plant. Its blossom fails, and its beauty is destroyed. In the same way, the rich will fade away, even while they go about their business. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. When tempted, no one should say, "God is tempting me," for God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. But each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. Then, after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. Thank you, Pete, very much indeed. New Year is often a time when, whether or not you make resolutions, we all spend a bit of time, I guess, we can't help ourselves, looking back over the year that's just gone and looking forward to what the coming year might bring. Now, you might be looking forward with great expectation and excitement. Some of us have great plans, some of us have hopes, others of us have fears and anxieties. So it's not always a positive thing, but this is a moment in our lives, I guess, for most people when, if you like, we just take a little bit of a zoom out and we have a little bit more of a sort of higher view of what's going on in our lives, the things we want to change, whether or not we make them resolutions, things we want to work on and develop and so on. Here's the really shocking thing, I think, that James chapter 1 invites us to think about at the start of this year. That we can expect trials that will be hard this year and that will also transform us in the most wonderful, amazing ways. Now, I don't think we can say absolutely every single person here is guaranteed trials. I don't think James goes quite that far. But just look down at what he says. It's the very beginning of that reading, verses 2 and 3. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds. He doesn't say if you face trials, he says when. So perhaps it won't be this calendar year coming up, but likely. He's just, that's going to happen in life. But do you notice what he says about those trials, whatever they are? He doesn't specify here. He says, consider it pure joy whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If you're looking ahead to this year and you're realistic, there will be things this year which I will find painful and difficult, and they're things that will make me more the person God wants me to be. Things that will do amazing things, actually, in my heart and life, even though they might feel like trials, like difficulties. That basically is what the book of James is about. Can you see through how all the difficult things that you experience are for your good and are shaping you to be the sort of person God intends you to be? Mature, as he puts it there, perfect, complete. Those are all wonderful pictures Chapter 1 of James is a bit like a movie trailer, where you kind of get all the bits and pieces of the film, but not necessarily in the right order, and not necessarily in the way you can understand. So here's a pretty good movie trailer, I'd say.
Did you really anything happen? Anything you couldn't explain? You're a wizard, Harry.
I'm a what? Dear Mr. Potter, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry.
In a few moments, you'll pass through these doors and join your classmates.
Now, if you know Harry Potter, if you want to go home now and watch Harry Potter again, like I do, if you know Harry Potter, then all those little bits at the start of that trailer, you know where they fit. You know that that's Diagon Alley and Ollivanders. You know that actually, when Hagrid is talking to Harry, it doesn't actually happen in Ollivanders' wand shop. It happens elsewhere. You know how it all works. But the point of the trailer is not to give you everything in perfect chronological order. It's to whet your appetite and make you think, oh, what's going on there? Oh, I can't wait to get into this. That's basically what chapter 1 of James is all about. It's getting you interested so that you will see that going through trials that can transform you is really, really good, even if it's not a nice experience. The point of chapter 1 is to get you thinking, yeah, I want to find out how I can be this sort of person who's not thrown by hard things in life, but sees that they can somehow make me more mature. And the way it does that, very simply, I think, is by giving you a load of little snapshots like the start of the trailer to help you think about yourself and to help you think about God. So that's what we're going to explore in the next few minutes, what we're like and what God's like. And I'm going to get you to do some work, actually. So, because we all need to sort of warm up a bit, you might want to sort of stretch out and shake off your limbs. What we're like. Turn to your neighbour. If you need a Bible, there's Bibles at the end of the pews. Turn to your neighbour or a few people around you and see if you can find things in those verses that Pete read for us, verses 1 to 15, that tell us things about what we are like, or what humans are like generally. I'll give you a few minutes and then we'll take some feedback. Off you go. There's my 4 things. The challenge is if people don't come up with those, what do I do? Winging it. All right then. I'm sure that's not enough time, you could spend forever, but has anyone noticed any things about what we're like, what people are like? It can be something big, something small, something you're not sure about. Who'd like to tell us something they've noticed, what we're like? Yes, Lorelei. Yes, if any of you lacks wisdom. And that kind of links, doesn't it, to verse 4, that there's this work to do that will make you mature and complete. So one word I was thinking of, if you can read my writing, one thing about us that James seems to think, you can't see that anywhere like near at the back, that says incomplete. So there's something, we're not all what we should be. that this process might make us mature and complete. But there, verse 5, we're lacking wisdom. We're incomplete. Yes, very good. What other things? Pete? Doubting. Yes. When you ask, verse 6, you must believe and not doubt. Now, there's a word in verse 8, right at the end of that little bit. Such a person is double-minded and unstable. And all that. And that's a word that we think basically James has made up. Now, we know the word double-minded, but you don't really find people using it. And I think that's the point of this doubting thing, that there is something that's sort of wrong with us. I'm going to put this at the bottom, you'll see why. Double-minded and doubting is a real sort of affliction that James is interested in. He thinks it's a problem that we have. Thank you. Other things? Any more? Yes, Linda at the back.
We are immature and incomplete.
Very good. Immature and incomplete. That's all at the top there, isn't it? Verse 3, 4, and 5. And that's a problem for us. Other things? David? Some are humble and some are rich. Yes, do you see that in verse 9 to 11? It's one of those moments where, why is he talking about that? It's like the sort of trailer where you can't really see what makes sense. One word that I was thinking about to sum that up is really what he says in verse 11. The sun rises with scorching heat and withers the plant. Its blossom falls and its beauty is destroyed. In the same way, the rich will fade away even while they go about their business. So there are people in all kinds of different circumstances, but all of them, their problem is they are temporary. As in, they're not going to last forever. And that's something that James wants you to think about here. Any more for any more? One more word that I thought of, and I did spend a bit more time on it, so it's cheating really, isn't it? Do you notice when James starts talking about what's wrong with us in verse 13? When tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me, for God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. But each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. Then after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin when it is full grown gives birth to death. One more word to think about here. We are vulnerable. There is something about us which enables us to be enticed by wicked things. Now you look at that and you think that's a pretty embarrassing list, pretty painful list to think about. They each mean different things. So incomplete, you might think about a jigsaw. That you can sort of see bits of it. We've had one of these in our house, but lots of people do over Christmas, I guess. And we haven't quite got all the pieces there, which is not ideal. But then to think that we're temporary, that all the Christmas presents we got this year, in the end, they're going to go. We're not going to hold on to them forever. They might have broken already, but all of them will disappear eventually. But so too with all our jobs and all those relationships that are so meaningful and precious to us, our homes. We are vulnerable. To think that for all those good intentions we might have, whether we call them New Year's resolutions, they could easily be thrown off course by just the smallest thing. Double-minded is the one that I said James is most interested in, and one way you might think about this is us going ice skating. I'm just showing you my holiday snaps now. This is our ice skating trip after Christmas this year. We had a lovely time. We were with our cousins, so here's Zach and Eliza and Benji. Benji is obviously very proficient at it. He's a pro. Lots of us, myself included, the challenge when you go ice skating is that your limbs don't all go the right way. So you can start off going like that, and then you find your feet going like that. And then your arms sort of try and respond in some way. They can do nothing, but they sort of make lots of noise. And before you know it, you're flat on your back. And the issue in ice skating is if your legs are going further and further apart, eventually you will lose your balance. Or you think about someone who's got 1 foot on the land and 1 foot in a boat. They're trying to push off, but they don't take their feet away. Eventually, it's all going to go wrong. That's the idea here about double-mindedness. It's like we are split, and eventually that's going to be really bad for us. Now, I think if we think that this is what James is saying that we're like, or something like that, then to think about, I don't know, what you want to do this year, all the things that you're hoping and excited about, like I said, these are sort of problems for that. Because, Well, like I said, if all our stuff is temporary, then the good things that we're looking forward to, we're going to lose them one day. And bad things can get the better of us quite easily. But think about the incomplete point. There might be good things that we are looking forward to and longing for this year, which we think right now will satisfy and make everything right again, but which actually won't, because we are missing bits of the puzzle. Or think of the double-minded point. You might be pursuing one thing, but actually there's something else in your life which is going to wreck it. If you like, your legs are going like that, and you don't realize it. James, he says, look, there's this wonderful thing that God has for us. This wonderful, wonderful thing of being mature and complete. But the problem is that we're far from that right now. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to sing again, and then we're going to come back and think about that second thing we wanted to explore. We're going to sing a familiar song. You've probably sang it in primary school if you're a bit older. We've sung it a few times here. It's like you've introduced a new generation to it. Shine, Jesus, shine. So let's stand as the music starts and sing together. And carry on reading a bit. We'll actually read from verse 12 through to verse 18, not the end of the chapter, to verse 18. James chapter 1, beginning at verse 12. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. When tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me, for God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. But each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. Then after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. Don't be deceived, my dear brothers and sisters. Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. He chose to give us birth through the word of truth, that we might be a kind of first fruits of all he created. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So we've been thinking about what we're like. We've got some ideas from it in James. Obviously, the second thing is to think about what God's like. And over to you again. So turn to your groups, and we've got down to verse 18 now. So what things do you notice about God in these verses? Off you go. Okay then. Now, what is God like? What does this chapter say about what God's like? Lorelei.
We talked about how God has everything.
Yes, God has everything because, well, he gives and gives, and that seems to be, he's the one who can give it all. Yes, that's really helpful. Thank you. Any other things linked to that or different from that? Yes, Lynn. Thank you. So that's verse 13, isn't it? God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. There's something about him which is, it's pure. Yes. Is that a hand up? Go for it. God is generous. Yes, he seems to just want to keep giving and giving. If you lack wisdom, go to God. You'll get it. He wants to give it to you. Anything else? David?
Talk about him not changing.
He doesn't change. Yes, that's a big thing, isn't it? Verse 17, every good and perfect gift, there's his generosity, is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. Now, if you notice the way that the bits about God come, they sort of come a bit at the start and a bit at the end, and they've got loads of stuff in the middle about all the sort of things we're like. It's a bit more scattergun than that. But there's these little moments where James wants you to sort of think, okay, what's God like, and how does he relate to all that? Verse 5 is pretty strange, actually. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault. The word that we translate generously, it's a difficult word to understand. It might mean something like simply, straightforwardly. It's a weird idea. It doesn't really sort of follow. And so on most translations, they sort of think, oh, generosity. Well, that's lots of the rest of the passage talks about that, so that's probably what it means. But it doesn't quite mean that. There's something really simple about the thing God gives us, because ultimately, what I think this passage is telling us is that God basically gives us himself. The answer to all our deepest needs, all that's wrong with us, all that's sort of not the way it should be, all our deepest longings and questions and hopes and so on, is God giving himself to us. When you think about this a bit, it will make your head hurt, but it's good to think about at the start of the year, to think this is what we need most of all. Now, to help us make sense of it, I need a volunteer who wants to come do some running for us. Miles, you come up here. Thank you, Miles. You'll be very warm by the end of this, and the rest of us will be jealous. You've got good boots on the occasion. Now, this is very simple, Miles. All I want you to do is to jog, fairly lightly up and down the aisle for the rest of the service, I guess. So, let Miles do his jogging, and as he's doing that, I'll try and explain what's going on. Here we can see that Miles is basically changing a lot, can't we? Because, he's very fit, no doubt, but he's moving, he's acting, he's working. Probably he's starting to, feel a bit of sweat coming on. He's starting to, I'm sure he won't be tired yet. Keep going, Miles, this is brilliant. There would be a way for Miles to become, if you like, unchanging. The obvious way, Miles, if you come up here and stop and don't move. Now we see that Miles is not changing. He's not even panting. Very impressive. Lorelei. Oh, yes. Good point. If we just, Miles, just stop there. If we just said, Miles, don't move now, eventually he would become unchanging. He wouldn't be very nice, but he would eventually, if the heating went off in church and he didn't move, he just would eventually come to a complete rest. And he'd become like one of these stones here, completely unchanging. There is another way, which, if you can think about it, Miles could become unchanging. Miles, I'd like to start jogging again. Off you go. Now imagine that we could say to Miles, okay, Miles, could you run a bit faster now? A bit faster. I haven't risk assessed this, so we're going to have to work out when it's safe. Keep going, faster still. Faster, Miles, faster, faster, faster. If we can imagine that Miles was strong enough and fit enough to run faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. Okay, let's give him a round of applause. You can sit down now. If we could imagine that Miles could run infinitely fast, so he never stopped, he got faster and faster and faster. Eventually, if you like, he would be unchangeably fast. That basically, I think, is what's going on in James chapter 1. One theologian put it this way: God is unchangeable, not because he is inert or static like a rock or like Miles if he stays still forever, but for just the opposite reason. He is so dynamic, so active, that no change can make him more active. Now that might make our heads hurt, because when we think of not changing, we can only think really of like the Rock of Gibraltar or someone staying completely still. But the truth about who God is in the Bible, and it's behind all this stuff in the book of James, and it's why God is so generous and giving and full, as we were seeing, it's because he is like the opposite extreme. He is so full of life that he can't become more alive. He is so dynamic, so active, that he can't become more active. He is unchangeably full and maximally and beautifully alive. And that is why I think in James, he gives simply. Because he is the only one in which all our needs can be met. He is the only being who can just give himself to us, and whoever we are and whatever we need, we'll find it there. And there is such an infinite rich and depth to knowing this God that we can spend the whole rest of our lives and we'll never get to the bottom of him, and we'll never sort of out receive from him. He always has more and more and more to give. One of our favourite books in our house, our favourite character is Elmer, and in one of the stories, I won't go into all the details, but the rainbow in the story loses its colours, and so Elmer gives his colours to the rainbow, except Elmer doesn't lose his own colours, and all the other elements are very confused by this. But Elmer says to them, some things you can give and not lose any. Things like happiness or love or my colours. And I'm afraid to say that is simply not true. Because if you've spent some time after Christmas with loved ones, family, you can give your love and it exhausts you. You can make all the people around you happy, and there are times when you feel really, really unhappy. But with God, that is wonderfully true. He is so fully alive and so fully loving and good and kind and beautiful that he can give and give and give. And he says he wants to. And he doesn't become any less alive, any less loving, any less full. So what do you want this year? What are you longing for above all? The weird thing about James is that we recognize how far away we are, if you like, how much in need we are. We can find in God everything to meet all our deepest needs and longings, and we can even accept those hard trials because they will bring us closer to him. And that will be what our soul most needs. Now, if that sounds unbelievable, difficult to accept, well, that's what the book of James is for. As we explore this book, whether over in Sunday school or here in church, we will see how James unpacks that for us, and how it really is the case that this beautifully, fully alive God meets all the needs of us and our church. We'll be exploring this over the next few weeks, but I hope you've got, like that trailer, a little taste of it already. We're going to stand and sing in response, and I hope it's a song that will sort of make a bit more sense in the light of what we've been thinking about. His glory and my good. We'll also take a collection during this hymn that will go towards the work of this church and projects we support beyond this church. If you're new, just visiting, don't feel any embarrassment.